you a story. Nowadays, we buy stuff online, we reuse it for a little bit, and then we throw it out. Or maybe we store it somewhere in a drawer, only to throw it out like a few years later, and we find it full of dust. We're the only species on Earth that does it that way. If we look at nature, it's always reused. We're the only ones that just think, oh well, let's just dump it somewhere and not reuse it again. So we are Team Buffalo, and this weekend we challenged that concept. We challenged the concept of ownership. And we thought, let's look at the ownership of resources. Because if you think this is a crazy idea, it's been done before. Look at Spotify, for example. Spotify did this. Spotify did this for music and for CD collections. Nowadays it's like almost a stupid thought to have a CD. And we want to do this for resources.
Now, the bigger picture where this applies into is not just sharing objects around. Because what we want to do is create technology that allows for a greater paradigm shift in the way we even create products in the first place. What we want to do is create a circle so that when resources are able to go from user to user, we can actually fundamentally change the way we want to design in the first place. For example, we can have objects that are basically used by individuals, and then when they go through the circle, the building blocks are able to be taken out of these resources when they aren't being used, and they can be reused in new products. And in that way, individuals can then, manufacturers can create a sustainable product that lasts for a long time, and then they can reuse the resources when it's no longer valuable into the next product.
So obviously the challenge we're facing is not finite resources. It's that we're not using the resources we already have in an optimal way. So this is where Buffalo.Network comes in. We really drew inspiration from nature, where we have these keys of abundance and enough resources, and applied them to society, and we do that with 3 tiers. Track, commonize, and distribute. So we have the resources, we just don't know where they are. They're in drawers, we just don't know which drawers. If we can get all those resources tracked, then we can commonize them. This is crucial because then we provide access to these resources. And if we have access, we can distribute them, make sure that those resources are being used in the optimal way. So right now we have some things in our drawers. They're fulfilling some needs. This is material wealth. Where we want to go to is that we have access to any resources we need to fulfill any functions, and this is functional wealth. So let's share the Buffalo.Network vision.
So what we have here is we have a vision for what our mobile app will look like. Later we'll go through the actual backend code to show the functions that will be used within this. So basically a user will begin with a mobile app, and they can sign in with their own MetaMask account. That lets them own their own account, and Buffalo.Network is unable to actually edit the assets in the network. The individuals are in full control. So once they register, they'll see a very simple dashboard that actually shows them where the resources are located in their community. And from this, they have a very few simple functions to actually take this further. They can, for example, give and register a product that they might have and add it to the network. In doing so, they make it available for everybody else. After they give an item to the network, other people can then see what's available for them to take. And then, when doing so, they'll be able to see a list of all the resources in their community available for them to take, and then in doing so, they can actually trigger it to be delivered towards them. And then, what we have right now is we could potentially use the postal system in the short term, but maybe we could use, for example, more critical infrastructure like drones and other autonomous machines to further make this more free and accessible to people, and also quicker deliveries. So now let's go into, the back-end code and see what these functions are actually like and how we're using our technology. Yep. So, as I said before, we're using MetaMask as the account management, and in addition, we're using BigChainDB, which lets us basically create a big database that the entire world can share. And because of this, all the information is open and transparent, which lets us do some cool things we'll describe later. Let's dive into the functions of the app. So Rick?
Cool. Yeah. So now we're signed in with a seed. For example, this can be a login with MetaMask. The moment we log in, we get to see all the products that we currently use, and we can register a new product. For example, at this moment we're going to register a drill. I currently have that, and I don't use it anymore. I register it in the comment. It will now become available to the comments for anyone to take. So if you now go to all products, we will see the drill being added to the comments, and at that moment, as a user, I can take that product and I can kind of reserve it. Then the person that was using it before will get notified that, for example, in the future, a drone is coming to pick it up, but at this moment, just that a product has to go from A to B. And when that drill is delivered to the second person, I can confirm that I now have that product, and the ownership will actually be transferred in BigJDB from A to B.
Yeah. And so what's interesting about this whole function is that as we're building this open on the blockchain, as we said, open data. And what this means, as a good example, we can think of all this data flowing around of where assets are, where they're being moved in real time. Imagine an open Excel file that every college student had access to. They could analyze this Excel file and maybe use tools like AI and machine learning to actually go through and find better ways to optimize the flow and analyze the way the network is operating. And everyone has access to improve upon it. We have our data scientist here, Wei Wei, who's actually made some models of how we can reach critical mass with abundance.
Yes, thanks for the Buffalo.Network, because they help us collect the more data about personal information. With this data, it's a baseline to apply the machine learning or AI solutions. And within this short time, we built a kickoff solution for how to find out the optimal solution, optimal number of the materials in the comments. What I mean, optimal solutions of the material, for example, we have a hammer in our comments and we have more than enough. So how we gonna dealing with these extra hammers? Because no one gonna use it. If we don't think about it, then we just creative waste in our comments. That's why we apply the AI approach. Then we figure out what's the optimal solution for that. So then extra hammers we can use is creative the screwdriver, which can self-service for the people in the comments who need screwdriver. In this way, we really better use our optimal use our resources in the world.
Right, and this basically allows us to then use the autonomous machines and make sure if there's any excess of resources, we can reconfigure them and take out the building blocks and apply it into the new resource. And that ensures the resource itself always has maximum efficiency, letting us do way more with much less.
Yeah, and in this way we come back to the example. We fast forward in the future, we still order stuff online. Because we really believe that technology changed and you should help people making these other decisions. So we can still order it online, but then we think back of 2019 and we think, did we really waste all these enormous amounts of resources while we already had them just laying around us? That's what Buffalo.Network wants to create, and that's what we're really proud of. And we also had the 1,000-day plan. We thought about that because we don't want to leave it here at this weekend. And we spoke to pension funds to see whether, because if you can do this in a certain way, that there's enough resources, then pensions becomes a concept that's also obsolete. And we really think that if we can do a proof of concept in a village and try to do this for a few people and then for their whole lifespan, to expand it organically into creating an abundance in all these things. And that's how we want to take it forward. We're really proud and we hope we conveyed it in the right way. We're Buffalo.Network.
Thank you. Thank you guys.
What are the milestones in your incubation plan? So what do you see first, and who would you meet?
I think it will start with theoretical research. I think there's a lot of parties where we do this pitch to. They're like, "Oh, that sounds interesting," but it's such a radical shift from how society is structured now. That we're going to have economists, AI specialists like Wei Wei, and also parties like University of Amsterdam, APG, all say we're interested because we see value. And create some kind of proposal that could make sense. And this could have a positive reinforcement loop with an experiment. And we were thinking a place where people would volunteer to be part of this. And a beautiful example would be like eco-villages. The Netherlands has plenty of those. It would be a perfect place to start an experimental Buffalo.Network.
And in addition, we also reached out to different manufacturers who already use recycled materials. For example, certain companies will take old phone parts and remake it into jewelry or other functional parts. And we reach out to them and see if they would want to join our network. And as we've used the APG example with pensions, for example, you may not realize where you can invest it in such a moneyless economy, but the machines that deconstruct items and the drones that deliver from point A to point B, once you pay for it up front, they're free forever after that. And so we can use that kind of initial kickstart to get this thing going and kickstart this moneyless economy.
And you started the Buffalo.Network before the hackathon?
We started?
How was that?
Yeah, so we were really excited about the challenge, and so we started thinking about the world's problems in terms of abundance and scarcity and why we hoard things in different locations. So we had about a month of us meeting after work every now and then for a few hours and talking about the idea. And then when we came here, we were really excited to talk with you guys and kind of take it even further and kind of put more pressure on these other ideas.
Yeah, I'd say we were really excited by Nature 2.0 and then learning from how nature does it. And that's why we're called Buffalo, because we thought about that and then we thought Buffalo was something that back in the day when people were very much connected to nature, they used every single part of a buffalo. So they ate the meat and then we created a fork out of the bones, and then we applied that concept into further thinking, and then here we are.
What I want to hear that from you all. Why is this your passion? And I start with you. Why is this so a big passion for you?
The thing is, everyone talks about change. People want to see change, and people are hesitant to change. We as Buffalo.Network want to start that revolution, start that thinking actually. When Neil Armstrong landed on the moon, he said it's one small step for mankind, human, but a huge milestone for mankind. So this is us, Buffalo.Network, trying to start that small change. It might look like one small step, but this is the step we need for humanity.
Super cool.
Cool.
What makes you passionate about it?
Well, I think when we started our brainstorms, we were really looking for a thing that is right now, like recycling is being done already, but we try to radicalize it by enabling it for everyone. Not only recycling parts, but recycling everything to the full potential. And we were also challenged by you to change our ideas, because first we were thinking of maybe an incentive mechanism, and you were like, why are you using an incentive mechanism? And then we also start thinking, yeah, we're in nature too. We shouldn't use an incentive mechanism, so we dropped it all out of it. We just look way into the future where drones are available, 3D prints are available, and just everyone can use the system for the good of the humanity.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have some people of universities here. What would be the research questions that you're most passionate about?
Very cool. So I think Weiwei, for example, is working on the abundance models, because if we have this system where you have a bunch of hammers, and at some point there's too much hammers that needs to be put into something else, what is the right threshold? What's the right balance of actually too much in one system and needs to be reconfigured to the other? So those type of mathematical models, to reach critical mass of having enough things for people to have when they need it, is going to be a big research question.
Yeah.
I would add to that, how is technology going to influence our current perception of the tragedy of the commons? How are those two going to interact, and how will our approaches to those problems shift as we have more critical infrastructure in the future?
Yeah, and we spoke to Nijmegen University that's here, and they're doing pilots on having multiple mediums of exchange. I think it's super interesting for us to also be in that pilot and test this, because resources are a medium of exchange, and see if they can answer it for community, and then we can learn from that as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.